It was finally said, as an insider has revealed a major New York Rangers update in a new report on what Mike Sullivan is going to be changing and why things are going to be different this season. And it has Rangers fans absolutely fired up. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 77% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Rangers before the season starts, go down below, hit that free subscribe button, because this is the place to be for all your daily New York Rangers content. But Brett, let's get right into it. We have a new report, which is crazy in the middle of August, I guess, from Larry Brooks. And this is his summer edition. He was saying, you know, some of the things to expect heading into next year, including the captaincy. And we'll start with that. But there's also some interesting stuff about Mike Sullivan in here, because obviously brand new coaching staff. We've been talking about it the last little while. But there's one thing that a lot of people are missing that I think will absolutely help the Rangers turn, I guess, last season around into a playoff berth this coming season. So from Brooks, he says that JT Miller should be appointed captain of the New York Rangers at the start of training camp. So this should happen before the season starts. Don't wait any longer. We've both been talking about that as well. The captain sweater is not just another piece of laundry, and this is a quote from Larry Brooks. It represents the organization's ethos. The Rangers acquired JT Miller to change the team culture. The 32-year-old is a hard-edged and can be abrasive. That is the identity the blue shirts should adopt. And make no mistake about it, that's why Chris Drury went out and acquired this player. Obviously, we know he can put up 100 points in a season, but it's the little things like that he brings to a lineup, brings to a locker room, that he acquired him. And say what you want about Larry Brooks. We're going to see it in the comments, I'm sure. But I have to say, Brett, I agree with him here. We've been talking about it. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Brooksy blessed us this Sunday. And look, I agree. I'm pretty sure you're in lockstep as well that, JT Miller was not only reacquired by the New York Rangers to put up that production, anchoring that first line center spot. We've seen him put up 100 points before. We've seen him basically do it twice. You're looking at his stats from this past season here, still a very productive player. And let's not forget, he doesn't need to be the man. He is surrounded by a lot of really good players on this Rangers team, which is why whenever I speak about Mike Sullivan, I'll hear some Penguins fans, I'll hear some other NHL fans talk about, well, he had Sidney Crosby, he had Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin, etc. Let's not forget the Rangers have a couple studs themselves. They just need to bounce back. It's going to be up to Mike Sullivan to get the best out of Artemi Panarin, to get the best out of Mika Zibanejad and Adam Fox and Igor Shesterkin, right? He's got some studs on this roster to play with, and I truly believe the Rangers can make the playoffs this year. I really do. If you look at last year, it wasn't because of a lack of talent why the Rangers missed the playoffs. Obviously, some key contributors took a step back, but the drama, the chaos was just too much to handle in New York last season. And if Mike Sullivan wants to get things rolling, the right way, instead of starting training camp the way the Rangers did last year, obviously getting rid of Barclay Goodrow, putting Chris Kreider, Jacob Trouba in that trade memo, leaking it out, why don't you start training camp by naming the captain, establishing that structure on the ice? Because I said that Mike Sullivan is the perfect leader off the ice, but now you need to establish the captain, the true leader, the extension of Sullivan on the ice, and that player is no other than JT Miller. And the simple reason is because this is a north to south style player, 200-foot player, a player that plays with such force, such grit. And like I said, he exemplifies everything Mike Sullivan is about. He has that aggressive forechecking DNA. He's going to get in your face on the ice. He's going to get in your face in the locker room if he has to. So this is what the Rangers need to do. We said it here on the channel, Darius. Not only pair Gavrikov with Fox, that's obviously an easy move that should be a no-brainer for Sullivan, but naming JT Miller the captain, that's the reason why you brought him in.
And I think you bring up a good point that last season, heading into the season, there was a lot of question marks. Is Jacob Trouba going to be here long term? Are they actively trying to trade him? The story this year could be, this is our new captain. This is the guy who's going to lead the way. Everybody should be feeling good. We're back on track, right? So it's a completely different story heading into this year. And to me, it's a no-brainer to name JT Miller as captain. This is a guy that has everything that you want in a captain. He can put up 100 points like you were talking about. He can get in your face. And I vividly remember one of the first games he played as a Ranger to return to the Rangers. that last season, he was getting in Mika's face on the bench and yelling at him. And I remember seeing Canucks fans going, "Oh, here we go. This is JT Miller. He's starting already." No, Mika Zibanejad wasn't playing well, and JT Miller was letting him know. So you need a guy like that in the dressing room to hold everybody accountable, right? So he's the guy to lead the way, I think. And one other thing to pivot a little bit, because this is still, kind of in the same topic of how Sullivan going to change things and how are things going to be different for the New York Rangers. And this was from the same piece. And it's that players, and this is a direct quote from Larry Brooks again, players will have to earn ice time under Mike Sullivan, and that is entirely appropriate. But this is the year that the Rangers must grant greater opportunities to both Lafreniere and Schneider. Now, in saying that, nobody should be given an opportunity. You have to earn that opportunity. We all know that, right? And that's the way it should be, especially with Mike Sullivan and the new coaching staff coming in. That being said, I do think that they have to at least try and give these two guys specifically a bigger opportunity and maybe bigger roles in different situations. And Lafreniere, we've been talking about him a lot on the channel. This is a guy that didn't get an opportunity on the power play last year. For some reason, Peter Laviolette was stuck in his ways, didn't want to change anything. This is a guy that should get some power play time, because if you look at the 5-on-5 analytics last year, they weren't horrible. They weren't great, but they weren't horrible. There was nothing to really, panic about in certain situations. Yes, they weren't a great team, right? But where it gets really sticky to me last season is special teams. And I mean, they were 11th in PK, not horrible. Not horrible at all, right? If you're top 15 in the league, I guess that's okay to a degree. You want to be top 10. You'd like to be top 5. But the real problem is for a team that was known with a lot of the player personnel that still stuck around last year for their power play success and how good they were on special teams 2 seasons ago, 28th in the league in power play opportunities, or converting on the power play, a very lowly percentage there. So that's something that has to change. Lafreniere needs to be given an opportunity on the power play. What do you make of that? Because something has to change there. You can't just give a guy an opportunity if he doesn't deserve it, but Lafreniere is going to have the opportunity to come into training camp and be put in that situation and take on some more roles with this team.
Yeah, look, it's an excellent point, Darius. You've just brought it up there. That statistic, 28th in the entire NHL, which is really unlike the Rangers, what we're accustomed to here in New York. Usually we're one of the better teams in the NHL on the power play. Let's not forget, the 23-24 season, top 3 in the entire NHL, just behind Tampa Bay and Carolina. So, to go from 3 to 28, I spoke about it, going from President's Trophy Award to 13th in the Eastern Conference, doesn't happen by accident. I spoke about the chaos. I spoke about the players, the key players taking a step back, but going from 3rd to 28th on the power play is just insane to me, with a lot of the same personnel, which is really odd, really strange. And you make a good point. Alexei Lafreniere needs to be utilized on the power play, because what did Einstein say? He spoke about, trying the same thing over and over again. Definition of insanity. So why would the Rangers want to run out? Obviously, Kreider's not here anymore, but why would the Rangers want to run out that same crew, that was 28th in the NHL on the power play? Why not mix it up? Why not move Mika around, like I spoke about, give him different opportunities, different looks, instead of living in Ovechkin's office, on the power play? Why not move him around a little bit? And not only that, but utilize Lafreniere. We just spoke about his 5-on-5 play, very strong. Why not put him on the man advantage? It should translate. And one more point I want to get to here that you brought up was the fact that Laviolette stuck in his ways. Let's not forget the Rangers have had some coaches here. Tortorella, obviously, going back. Gerard Gallant not too long ago. Peter Laviolette. These coaches are rigid. They're stuck in their ways. They're not looking to change and, play to the modern game. I believe Mike Sullivan is one of those interesting coaches where he can blend, that old school mentality with that modern look. I really believe that. There's a reason why Pittsburgh wanted to keep him around during their rebuild. Obviously, things went awry last season, and it was just time to move on after such a long partnership. That's just what happens sometimes. It's natural. But look, this is a guy that is going to be able to blend, have that perfect balance of that old school gut type coaching, mixing it in with the X's and O's, and really catering to those young players. And we've seen him do it in Pittsburgh, Darius. We've seen him develop young guys and a bottom 6, not just Crosby, like I said, but he was able to develop the rest of that Penguins team, which was so successful for so many years.
Absolutely. And I think that when you're looking at some of the younger players on this team, like Alexei Lafreniere, he's still a young player on the team. Mike Sullivan, I think, is going to be able to at least work with them and give them an opportunity to earn an opportunity to, for lack of a better term, in different situations and situational play. And if you look at this, I wanted to bring this up too, because you've been bringing it up the last little while. Let's not forget about Lafreniere's 5-on-5 play. He's actually quite good and producing 5-on-5, right? But when you don't get an opportunity when you're playing on a top line like that, on the power play, you're not going to put up that many points. And yes, he didn't play well last year. He didn't look like he was very interested some games, right? All of that is true. But I think, coming in with a fresh start, new, fresh coaching staff, somebody that can maybe listen to him, because it didn't seem like Peter Laviolette had time for younger players. I think that could be a recipe for success, because if you take a look at his stats from last year, half a point a game player, right? So if he is on the power play and the Rangers can take the power play from 28th, let's say, to even top 15, that much of an improvement, then he's going to put up some more points and the contract won't look as bad. And if he's putting up a point a game, which maybe he's touching that this year. That's best case scenario, of course, right? That's optimistic, and I like to think optimistically. But if he's touching that, right, then the contract looks like it's worth it, especially in a rising cap world. So I think that there's a lot of reason to be optimistic heading into this year. For those reasons, again, I think a lot of people are realizing now how good Lafreniere actually is 5-on-5 and that he needs some more power play time. And he does, right? He plays in the top 6. He needs that power play time. So any final thoughts on this, Bret? Because I think that, again, Larry Brooks coming out with this new report and some new findings as well. I think things are going to be different this year. I see this team making the playoffs. I see at least some improvement in certain areas like the power play. I mean, it just has to at this point. You literally cannot get much worse than 28th. You can only fall 4 more spots. So there's going to be some improvement. I think there's going to be some excitement.
Yeah, so my final thoughts, another fascinating point you just brought up. The fact that, Rangers 28th on the power play, but they were still pretty solid on the PK, 11th, nearly cracking the top 10. So let's not forget, guys, Rangers brought in Vladislav Gavrikov. I know that seems like a century ago, but let's not forget that this guy is great on the PK. He's only going to improve the Rangers in that area. So they can possibly go from 11th to definitely top 10 in my opinion, but who even knows? They may mess around and crack the top 5. You really never know. When you bring in a player of that caliber to a team that's already on the fringe, that's already on the outside looking in, right at that top 10 spot, I can certainly see them cracking it and even messing around getting into the top 5. Now, the Rangers can't be as putrid as they were last season on the power play. I just don't see it. I spoke about it in yesterday's video. David Quinn coming back is a positive. The Rangers were so successful on the power play under David Quinn. He was not good as a head coach. We all know that. Very, very bad as a head coach. But one thing that he can always hang his hat on, not only that Mika Zibanejad relationship, which is important, another reason why the Rangers brought him back, obviously, to get Mika's head back where it belongs, but also on the power play. You can't deny the resume. You can't deny the statistics. Rangers top 5. 3 years in a row under David Quinn. I spoke about it yesterday. Took Pittsburgh from 30th, even worse than the Rangers, 30th on the power play to 6th. That jump is just absolutely insane. Basically a 5x jump. That's crazy. Taking them to nearly the top 5. Bring him back. Mika's head's going to be right. They're going to utilize him differently. I truly believe that. And the Rangers will not only be top 10 on the PK, but you said it, Darius, they certainly should be top 15 on the power play. And if the Rangers are top 15 on the power play, top 10 on the PK, and Igor bounces back, that's a recipe for success. That's a recipe for the Rangers to make the postseason. That's why I believe as long as they establish that identity, that DNA, which every postseason team has, they will be fine. They will make the playoffs. Not saying they're going to win a Stanley Cup, but they can mess around and make some noise in that open Eastern Conference.
And I think the Rangers are poised to make some noise again this year. And I think that, like you said, if all of those things align, they should probably make the playoffs. And, we covered another report yesterday that said, things are going to change for the Rangers. It's heading in a positive direction, but it might not happen overnight. But the one thing I love about this sport is that things can happen overnight and anything can happen. So, you mentioned some of those jumps from 30th to 6th, right? It can happen. And I think David Quinn, like a lot of people were very critical of this rehiring, if you want to call it that. Was he a great head coach? No, but he was a great special teams coach. We know that, and he's back as a special teams coach and to work with Mika. So if you can get him rolling, if you can get, Alexi Lafreniere rolling, the power play rolling, this is going to be a dangerous team again. It just is. You have the best goaltender in the entire world as well, so that helps. So let us know. We want to hear what you have to say about all of this. Obviously, JT Miller, captaincy. Do you see it? Do you want Vincent Trocheck? I know it's kind of split 50-50 amongst the fan base. Let us know in the comments because conversation always continues there and on X as well. Follow us on X. You can find the link in the description. But let us know how you feel about that in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.